Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to School for A Course in Miracles, and we are going to talk this morning about the Guiltless Son of God, which is in chapter 13, section 2. And as always, thanks to Tim and Lynn and all of you, and A Course in Miracles, and everyone involved, and all of creation, and yeah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is such a wonderful forum, and I know we're all really appreciative of being able to have this mechanism for reflecting things in our mind that are truly helpful. So anyway, thanks. And meanwhile, yeah, this is just a great section. I was mentioning that Ken in Journey Through the Text has a ton of stuff to say about it. So we got plenty to draw from. I thought I'd start though with today's workbook lesson, which isn't very long, and ask for some volunteers. There's only 5 paragraphs. I think it actually fits very nicely with what we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to go across my screen and see if anyone wants to read, starting with Jim Tynan. Would you like to read the first paragraph of today's lesson, which is number 49?
Lesson 49?
Uh-huh.
Sure. God speaks to me all through the day. It is quite possible to listen to God's voice all through the day without interrupting your regular activities in any way. The part of your mind in which truth abides is in constant communication with God, whether you are aware of it or not. It is the other part of your mind that functions in the world and obeys the world's laws. It is this part that is constantly distracted, disorganized, and highly uncertain.
Any thoughts on that one?
Great description of the world as it is.
Yeah. I think of
as
this.
it occurs to us.
Yeah. I think of this as sort of the chew gum and walk kind of lesson that he's reminding us that we can. Well, and Ken is quick to point out that this doesn't suggest that we listen to God's voice all through the day, but we have the potential of hearing that guidance all through the day, and God's voice being the Holy Spirit, right? If I can just remember to pay attention to the promptings, and so metaphorically, if I can kind of chew the gum or masticate, imbibe the wisdom of the Holy Spirit throughout the day, I can actually, metaphorically chew gum and walk. I can do the stuff that I would be doing in the world anyway, but with Holy Spirit as my mentor and guide throughout the day. Let's see, Betsy, would you like to read the second paragraph? For those who've just joined us, we're reading lesson 42, and we're the second paragraph before we jump into the main topic du jour.
49.
49. Is that what I said? Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thanks. And before I read, I just wanted to comment on paragraph 1. I really love sentence 2. The part of your mind in which truth abides is in constant communication with God, whether you're aware of it or not. That's such a beautiful, reassuring statement, that no matter how lost I think I am, that I am safe. So anyway,
there's no way we can ditch perfect oneness if we tried. In other words, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, paragraph 2. The part that is listening to the voice for God is calm, always at rest, and wholly certain. It is really the only part there is. The other part is a wild illusion, frantic and distraught, but without reality of any kind. Try today not to listen to it. Try to identify with the part of your mind where stillness and peace reign forever. Try to hear God's voice call to you lovingly. reminding you that your Creator has not forgotten his Son. And I really appreciate that he tells us 3 times to try, because he knows that we find this difficult, and to just try. And on a day when I'm leaning more towards calm, I can willingly accept that word try.
Thanks, Betsy. Yeah, and I that the only part there is, it's try today not to listen to the other part. Well, the other part we made up, but it's a misinterpretation, right? I love the word interpretation because it basically reminds me that the stuff that comes back to me from my projected world really is neutral, and there's really nothing good or bad about it, as Shakespeare said, but thinking makes it so. The thinking being the interpretation that the ego wants to use to distort and twist and basically impart some kind of guilt to every specific thing that I've projected, and make sure it, as we're going to talk about in the main topic du jour, is out there. As soon as it becomes a threat to the individual self that's seems to be protected by mindlessness, the ego says, "Oh, I got to project that. I got to project that. Got to project that." Out it goes, seemingly out, but it's never left its source in the mind. But anyway, so any other thoughts on second paragraph? No? Okay. Let's see. Tim, would you like to read the third paragraph?
Sure.
Okay.
We will need at least 4 or 5 minute practice periods today, more if possible. We will try actually to hear God's voice, reminding you of him and of yourself. We will approach this happiest and holiest of thoughts with confidence, knowing that in doing so, we are joining our will with the will of God. He wants you to hear his voice. He gave it to you to be heard. Yeah, this is just such a locker room kind of you can do it. You can hear it. Let's do it. We're going to win. Actually tries in here like, I don't know, 7 times. One more in that paragraph and then trying at least 3 times coming up. So just try.
Yeah.
If you get tired, just try. If you're not tired, try.
Yeah, exactly. And it's only the ego that finds it trying, pun intended. Because when we're actually, have you noticed that when you're actually finally getting around to doing something you've procrastinated and dreaded doing, and you finally just say, "Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do this thing," that if you just kind of let the resistance go, and when you actually do what you've been avoiding, there's sort of a release and a comfort that happens, or it can anyway. At least I find that sometimes. It's like, okay, now I'm finally doing it, so I don't have to, be obsessed with putting it off. And anyway, in case that helps. But yeah, God's voice, Holy Spirit calls to us lovingly, reminding us, it's just that, like you're saying, Tim, a locker room pep talk. It's like, okay, we can do this. It's already been done, but we can do this. Fait accompli. We don't have to worry about the outcome because it's a done deal. David, would you like to read the third paragraph? And you're on mute. Thanks.
Third paragraph. Sure. We'll need at least
Four.
Oh, well, fourth paragraph. That's right. Excuse me. Thank you. I thought that was starting to look familiar already. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Who were you asking me?
Yes, the fourth paragraph. Thank you.
Fourth paragraph.
Yeah.
Listen in deep silence. Be very still and open your mind. Go apart all the raucous shrieks and sick imaginings that cover your real thoughts and obscure your eternal link with God. Seek deep into the peace that waits for you beyond the frantic, riotous thoughts and sights and sounds of this insane world. You do not live here. We are trying to reach your real home. We are trying to reach the place where you are truly welcome. We are trying to reach God. Yeah, it's a pretty good description of how the ego chatter keeps going on, raucous shrieks and sick imaginings that cover our real thoughts and obscure our eternal link for God.
Mm-hmm.
We have an eternal link with God. We're joined with God because we're God's son. And when we can sink deeply into that peace, we can get beyond all the riotous streaks of the ego's speaking. This isn't our real home. Our real home is in God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, David. Yeah, I kind of reminiscent of lesson 182 that, that be still an instant and go home. And the home, of course, being in the place in our mind where we never made up guilt and sin and fear and duality and all that crazy stuff. Well, how about if we just take a moment or two and we'll make this an opening meditation. We'll finish the next paragraph in a moment, but why don't we just use that last sentence as a focus for meditation for a few moments, and just sit back, close your eyes, and sink deep into the peace that waits for us, and realize that we are trying to reach God. I'll call us back. Okay, gently come back. First thing I noticed was just the sounds around me in the room and outside the room, and I was thinking about how so often when I wake up, it's like there's that hypnagogic state where there's a place where there's no consideration of all the hustle and bustle and the raucous shrieks and sick imaginings of the world and the frantic riotous thoughts and sights and sounds of the world. But usually within a split second or two, that stuff comes flooding in. But if you can remember to hold on to that place in the mind where there's none of that really has kicked in, and it's like, well, that I think that's the piece that is waiting for us 24/7. But it's like that crayon that's furiously scribbling on the world, trying to make it something that it's not, and take the neutrality of the dream and make big deals, and now I need to do this, and I should probably ought to do that today, and and yada yada yada. But there's always that place in the mind that where the peace is just waiting for us patiently, gently. Maya.
Yes, good morning. Because there's been in course groups so much confusion since the course was published about what God's voice is. And, people sit waiting to hear whether they should clean their garage or do they need to do their tax returns today, that God's going to tell them that. So all that confusion, making the voice for God jump into the world and making the world real.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about this lesson, I'm reading it from certainly the metaphoric point of view that that the voice is a metaphor. But for me, this lesson is telling me I have a right mind.
Mhm.
You have a right mind. You've been living in your wrong mind. But if you dare to visit your right mind, there you will find God and the peace that that brings. So I finally got a perspective on it where I don't feel like befuddled by it. Why do they say voice for God? So it's coming clearer to me.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, I also think it's helpful that it's voice for God, not voice of God. It's basically, this is our proxy, or how we can relate to something that's really beyond the dualistic mind, and it gives us something that we can work with until we let go of all vestiges of thinking that we're separate. Right? Yeah, thanks. So, Susie, would you like to read the 5th paragraph? Oh, and then before you do, Marissa's got something.
I was just going to quickly add to Maya. That yeah, the voice is like a metaphor. I think it's the peace, the Holy Spirit's peace is his voice. And it's regardless of what's going on around us, external circumstances. And the ego's voice is always contingent on something outside of us going our way. And that's the ego's piece, and so I guess that's, for me, it's helpful to realize that it is a metaphorical, that it's the peace that we feel, that's his voice. We share that identity.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Oh, and Vicky.
We we have a 14-year-old grandson that we adopted, and when he came to us, he was 4 years old, and social services needed us to take care of him. He had a brain injury, and Friday the kids had off from school. So he's been with us 10 years, and we love him dearly. And Friday the kids had off from school, and him and his buddies wanted to go play basketball at the rec center, and he gets these migraines like every 2 years. It's not even very often, but dropped his friends off at the rec center at 2 o'clock, and at 3:30 he called my husband and he said, "I can't see. You got to come and get me." And so my husband did that, went and got him, and he had this horrible migraine, and both of us are trying to remember, what do we do? What do we do? What the doctors tell us to do, and trying to find the medicines to take care of him. And so I'm asking if anybody's had this experience where you're in that raucous shrieking. You want to help this human not feel that pain anymore, but yet you're hearing coarse, coarse rememberings going through your mind all the while you're doing it. And I was wondering, I felt like that was helpful to me to know that this was a dream. But I don't know. I guess I'm just asking, when you get in a really difficult place, hearing the rememberings of what the course tells you is, and just like keeping in that peace, but yet still dealing with helping your child. I was wondering if anybody else had that experience. Is it, for me, that's the voice for God. I'm going through this horrible thing, but I'm hearing and listening to what I know best or better.
Marissa?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I have had that experience, Vicky, and it's like most of the time it's not. I'm right in it. I'm in the story. I'm part of the story. I'm believing in the story, and I'm reinforcing the story with everybody else. But there are times lately where, when something challenging is going on, where I feel I have removed myself from the story and I'm looking at it and it softens. It's softened. Somehow it's like a little bit of it's erased. It's not as drawn in Sharpie, to use a symbolism. And I'm able to be of service to that moment better than I had when I was shrieking myself in the situation. So I guess one experience like that can lead to another. And so I'm seeing that in myself. I'm starting to look at those differently, those really charged situations.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. It softens it. It wasn't an emergency.
Right.
Thank you.
Luana, you had something?
And so what I've been doing lately is the knowing. For me, is that still small voice, just that knowing. It's like, it sounds like it's speaking English, but it's like nothing at all. And then when I'm going through those, what I believe to be tragedies, and they are when someone's in that much pain. And then yet when I throw myself in there with them, I'm losing the trust and the faith. And so I amplify and magnify that trust and the faith that this is a dream. We are living in the dream. And I want everybody to know that this morning was my first time, I feel like crying, that I finally experienced and realized that I am the dreamer. I am the dreamer. And I'm watching myself and watching all of you. Yay. Thank you.
Worthy of celebration. Thank you, Luana. Yeah, that's what we all are, is the dreamer, isn't it? And that's what helps us in any raucous, riotous, frantic situation, to remember that we're the dreamer. Okay, Tim's got something, and then Anna, and then Maya.
So in one of our many trips recently to the emergency room at the hospital, that's a pretty frantic, riotous place. However, the whole purpose of that, and to watch a bunch of young people running, the ER, the way they were dealing with one frantic thought after another. I mean, everybody comes into an ER is kind of frantic, right? And for them to maintain their cool. This one poor old guy, he's in a wheelchair, and he was sure that the staff in the ER stole his Coke, and he's screaming. And then another woman's getting in a fight with the lady at the front desk. I don't know what that was about, but in the midst of all this, it's like watching Band of Brothers, and working together to pull off minute by minute, and it wasn't. It transcended all. I watched that guy, the young ER guy, be so kind to the guy in the wheelchair. Like, oh no, your Coke is right here. Nobody took it. It's okay. And it felt so real. It felt so genuine. It felt so like in the midst of what, it's more like, it's not so much the frantic, crazy world, it's my reaction to it. Like, and really the frantic, crazy world was going on between my two ears. And then all of that is a reflection of what's going on in my wrong mind. I mean, that's where the crazy, frantic world is inside my wrong mind. Sin, guilt, fear, sin, guilt, fear. I mean, just screaming, sin, guilt, fear, sin, guilt, fear. And to just step back from that and still be able to watch it in an ER room or in a quiet, peaceful garden. It was just, it was a trip. I mean, if you're ever bored on a Friday night, go to an ER. It's a trip.
With or without a full moon. Yeah, I think, was it Anna and Maya next? Does I get that right?
Well, I was, I mean, to Vicky's question, my response is like, I feel like my experience, and it's what you just described, Tim, was where I was with my mom in the ER a couple times post knee surgery, which, Lynn, I'm like, I have one little eye on you. Like, what is this about? I get to relive it. but what I was going to say is that and then Marisa's saying the Sharpie of the ego, I felt like I was watching myself. I could feel myself in my decision maker, sort of aware, and yet just this constant fall, like falling off the bike, falling off the bike, falling off the bike. And that somehow the Sharpie is like this indelible mark that can never be erased. And then I'm thinking, the magic eraser, after our immersion theme yesterday was, magic versus miracle. And I don't really know exactly how, what I'm doing when I'm erasing or asking for it to be erased, but I'm trying to trust that and not, spiritually bypass my my accountability at looking at my own mind as the projector. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight highlighters and magic pens and indelible ink. I don't know.
And we use those markers to draw boundaries and borders and make distinctions and differences big and real and important, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
In time and space and every parameter we can think of. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Maya?
Yeah, in response to Vicky, the process that goes on for me is like a mind triage. So first one is, my ego has told me that in order to show that I'm a loving mom, friend, daughter, et cetera, I need to join with them in their distress. That's what ego will advise me. It's never the right thing. It's never the right thing. It only ramps up their distress when they see, uh-oh, if mom's upset, or, my dear friend's really freaked out, then it's really way more serious than I thought it was. So that's number one. So finding your peace. You've lost my peace. I try to get back into the right mind if I can. Calm down. While I'm in the car driving to whatever the distress is that I'm going for, the friend or family member. And then demonstrating that peace, but not detaching, which was my experience as a child. My mother would come and she'd sort of be peaceful, but she'd be really detached, like she didn't really care. That's what it seemed like to me. I had a lot of migraines as a kid. My first one was, I thought I was going blind too when I was 10. So I think that it's so important to find my peace and then be loving and empathetic, but not join them in their panic and terror. And then, and while holding on to, what reassuring thoughts can I give them that, they're going to be okay, even if I don't know if their body is going to be okay. But demonstrating that peace for me is the most important part, with the loving kindness toward, the person, and doing what needs to be done. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, anything else on that before we finish this lesson? No? Oh, Marissa.
Oh, just quickly to, Maya, what her triage is so very helpful. And it points to the fact that whatever's going on in front of us, our peace is not coming from form, it's content. It's nothing to do with what's going outside. Something could come through that we join in what seems to be the frantic, because people are so afraid and frightened that they need me to do that for a moment. But there's peace behind it. It's not their frantic. It's something else. It's a joining. I don't know if that makes sense. But I like Maya's triage. That's helpful.
Sounds like, doing the normal thing, but with a calm mind, when we know that or at least are willing to consider that maybe what we're getting from our senses isn't the whole story. Even just that sense of incompletion of the interpretation of ego's propaganda machine may not be the whole story. That I think that I find that helpful. Maya?
Yeah, I was just going to say, calm mind, yes, but loving heart,
Yeah.
the loving kindness that's what the person, especially if it's a child, that's what they're wanting, with that lovingness. So it's not just being calm.
Yeah, exactly. And that's only possible when we look at the guilt first, and in one way, fashion or another, question that, right? Yeah, thanks. Susie, would you like to read the 5th paragraph?
I will.
Thank you.
Do not forget to repeat today's idea very frequently. Do so with your eyes open when necessary, but closed when possible. And be sure to sit quietly and repeat the idea for today whenever you can, closing your eyes on the world and realizing you are inviting God's voice to speak to you.
Any feedback on that, Susie?
That's a good idea.
Yes. Very good idea, isn't it? Yeah, I was thinking, closing my eyes on the world. I sort of translate that as closing my eyes and ears metaphorically on the ego's misinterpretation. It's propaganda machine. It's pathological lying machine that tells me that I'm upset, and that's because something in the world is happening or not happening and to my liking. And if I can just remember to look at all that frantic, frenetic, riotous, insane stuff and just say, wow, even the stuff that doesn't seem disturbing, in obvious ways, if I'm seeing myself as separate and different from everyone else, then there's a self and an else, and that's intrinsically part of that misunderstanding, right? So yeah, thanks. Well, let's go now to chapter 13, section 2. There's a lot in this. And we can probably spend the rest of the day on this easily, but let's see if we can get the rest of the hour covering this. So this is the Guiltless Son of God, and there's a ton in here. Lynn, would you like to read the first paragraph? This is chapter 13, section 2.
Page 239. 239.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes.
Sure. The guiltless Son of God. The ultimate purpose of projection is always to get rid of guilt. Yet, characteristically, the ego attempts to get rid of guilt from its viewpoint only. For much as the ego wants to retain guilt, you find it intolerable, since guilt stands in the way of remembering. Guilt stands in the way of your remembering God, whose pull is so strong that you cannot resist it. On this issue, then, the deepest split of all occurs. For if you are to retain guilt, as the ego insists, you cannot be you. Only by persuading you that it is you could the ego possibly induce you to project guilt and thereby keep it in your mind. Wow.
Pretty loaded, huh?
Wow.
Yeah. Any slightly less than an hour comments, Lynn?
No.
There's so much there, isn't there? I mean,
no.
okay.
we must, above all else, preserve guilt according to the ego.
Yeah, yeah.
We must keep it by putting it in others. So we're, always scoping for some way to put it out there in someone else and be free of it. The ego's mode of operation all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we're never comfortable. We were talking about this yesterday. We're always restless. We're always uncomfortable. We're always some way or other trying to rid ourselves of the guilt. And never finding peace.
That's a good clue, isn't it? The ego's always squirming and fidgeting and mentally, and its plan is to drive us out of our mind after taking what we don't want in the mind and thinking, oh, I can project this onto the world. No, I'm done with it. No, it's never left its source. It's, even though we think we see it out there and we can just kind of wash our hands like Lady Macbeth of the blood, and it's like, oh, I'm good, but no, it's still in my mind. Yeah, it's. I think I pulled it off, and so I'm still tormented by that on some deep level, typically. But as long as the torment seems to be out there, the ego says, "Oh, I think I'm okay. I think I can deal with this." I'd like to read what Ken says, because he's got such good things to say. He comments on just in the first sentence. He says, the ego tells us we will escape from guilt and its horrifying punishment at the hands of a vengeful God by making a world in which to hide. Within the world itself, we escape from our personal sense of guilt by making others responsible for our suffering. Whenever we are angry or even mildly annoyed, it is because we seek to conceal the self-hatred within. Without that motivation, we would never attack anyone or anything. Wow. Yet ideas leave not their source, meaning projection is intrinsically a lie. Guilt remains forever in the split mind as long as our decision maker chooses to believe in it. And then he's got another, almost a whole page on just that first paragraph. Yeah. I'm tempted to read the whole thing because it's so good, but well, maybe we'll just read one more paragraph. This is in the next sentence here, which is a long sentence. Ken says, there's always the right-minded side of us that wants to remember God and return home. The you that Jesus is addressing above and is always addressing is the decision-making mind that the ego fears will inevitably choose against it. Thus, the ego's strategy of repression and projection, which retains the guilt in our unconscious, that by definition we are not aware of. Otherwise, it wouldn't be unconscious, right? In this way, the guilt is able to continually regenerate itself, from which we are unconsciously motivated to escape into the world, leaving our attention focused on finding sin and guilt all around us, but never within, a brilliantly conceived plan that keeps us mindless and forever incapable of choosing differently. So it's like because the seed of duality is planted there, and we chose that thought system, and it's intrinsically guilt provoking, so it's going to keep regenerating. It's going to keep fomenting this angst and this and discomfort and this lack of peace, because that's its nature. But because we can't tolerate that, and it's just so intolerable, the ego says, I got a plan. I'll just push it out onto the world and I'm done with it. Easy peasy, not so fast. Anyway, any other, and he goes on, but yeah, but that's plenty. Any other comments on the first paragraph? Tim.
So it went in line. Oh, when he talks about the deepest split of all occurs. A running theme through this is there's this idea of a cornerstone. What's the cornerstone of the whole ego thought system? What's the deepest split of all? Is that I actually kind of it's almost like I make up this ego thing. I believe it's talking to me. I believe it convinces me that I'm not me, but now I'm the ego. So the deepest split of all is I've made up these two seemingly conflicting voices, and now I just kind of fuse totally with ego. As if I mean, the ego's power all just came from me deciding I wanted to be an ego. There's, it's not the devil made me do it.
Mhm.
It's but the deepest split of all occurs, meaning I totally forget I'm a decision maker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm running around as this separate, isolated, terrorized, separate self.
Exactly. Yeah. And where he says you cannot be you, I thought, well, it's the ego cannot be the decision maker, says ego, everyone's ego. I can't possibly be something that could choose against this alleged fraudulent identity that I've made up that doesn't serve me. Well, when you put it that way, why am I doing this? Oh yeah, that's right. Because I don't want to be in my mind. I don't want to look at the obvious. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Audrey, would you like to read the second paragraph?
Would love to. Yet consider how strange the ego's arrangement is. You project guilt to get rid of it, but you are actually merely concealing it. You do experience the guilt, but you have no idea why. On the contrary, you associate it with a weird assortment of ego ideals, which the ego claims you have failed. Yet you have no idea that you are failing the Son of God by seeing him as guilty. Believing you are no longer you, you do not realize that you are failing yourself. That sounds like free-floating anxiety.
Just ready to pounce on the next thing that happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Or as Ken puts it, the grab bag of guilt. I pick whenever I hear him talk about the grab bag of guilt, I think of like a little quiver of arrows that's, just reach back and grab one. It's okay. Here's the next thing and pop off the cue, in programming parlance. It's like, okay, now let that one go. Now it's projected out into the world. Got rid of that problem. Well, not. Yeah. Yeah, the ego claims you have failed. Well, that's the guilt, right? The failure to achieve peace. That phrase, how's that working out for you? That Jesus is always asking us. And if we're honest with ourselves, well, I guess when I'm choosing the ego, not so well. But the ego never likes that illumination to shine on its gloomy, masochistic and ineffective thought system, reveal that that's just flat out doesn't work, right? Yeah. Any other thoughts on that one?
I was thinking about ego ideals, like an example, probably the classic example for me of an ego ideal is Marlon Brando in the back seat with I think it's Rod Steiger is playing his brother in On the Waterfront, and he's bemoaning that he could have been somebody, he could have been a contender, he could have been a real fighter. I mean, yeah, but it was his brother screwed it up. So not only did I fail my ego ideal, whatever it is, then I got to blame it on my brother, literally, in that case. This is an incredible scene. It's Marlon Brando at his whiniest, but it's all of us at our whiniest.
I could have made this dream work, had I just been given a break, really. Let's see. Anna, I was just going to ask you to read, but you got a comment too.
Oh, I have a comment too, which is just, I guess I get a little distracted by kind of wordplay or whatever, like.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now.
No, it's great. It's like the archery, like projection, releasing the arrow onto the object of your blame. Is in the archery term. When I read that, sin is missing the mark.
Missing the mark, yeah, exactly.
It's an archery term. So
yeah. Thank you.
Thought I'd put that in there.
Yeah, I remember that from years ago. Even people that read the Bible have shared that a bit. Yeah.
Which it's basically like, well, you keep trying to put the blame out, and you're missing the bullseye each time. You're missing it. And it's descriptive because it's not about anything outside, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of like the blame thrower, flamethrower connection is I try to put the blame out, try to put the flame out. Well, I'm dripping kerosene from my ego mind onto the landscape, and no wonder I keep dancing through the flames. You know, it's like, yeah, that's what's going on. That's how a flamethrower works, and a flamethrower does the same thing. Marissa?
I was just gonna add to what Anna said, that the blame thrower is actually a boomerang, so it
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
comes right back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, never left its source. Maya.
I had this funny image of Charlie Brown and Lucy. Charlie Brown could symbolize the decision maker, and how he's continually relying on the ego, Lucy, for things to turn out well, and they never do.
Like the classic one of where every year she's going to hold the football for him and he's going to kick it. Yeah. And she always pulls it away at the last second.
But he
goes,
will always
whoop. Yeah.
will always choose Lucy.
Yeah, exactly. And until at some point, maybe
Yeah.
after thousands of lifetimes, Charlie Brown realized, how's that working out for? Well, maybe not so. I could choose another thought system here. I think that's where we're all at to one degree or another.
But he's pretty gullible.
Yeah. But we usually need quite a few repetitions until we catch on and start to generalize and say, gee, that crazy thought system just ain't cutting it. Yeah. Thank you. So Anna, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Sure.
Thanks.
The darkest, says paragraph 3, the
Mhm.
darkest of your hidden cornerstones holds your belief in guilt from your awareness. For in that dark and secret place is the realization that you have betrayed God's Son by condemning him to death. You do not even suspect this murderous but insane idea lies hidden there, for the ego's destructive urge is so intense that nothing short of the crucifixion of God's Son can ultimately satisfy it. It does not know who the Son of God is because it is blind. Yet let it perceive guiltlessness anywhere, and it will try to destroy it because it is afraid. That's a very dark paragraph. I just see blood dripping from my own mouth. I mean, I'm pretty in it. So I think I have a little bit of, the crucifixion of God's Son includes me. I'm always like, I'm on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
It just, yeah. And the fear is so intense. And I'm watching the whole darn movie.
Yeah. But it's a movie.
But it's a movie.
You
But
got
I forgot
it.
it was
You
a
got
movie.
it. It's a movie. Yay.
But it's all dark in the movie theater, so I forget.
Well, yeah,
right
yeah.
on the screen. It's right in my face. It's 3D.
But eventually the house lights will come up and we'll walk out of the theater. That's what the course is telling us, right? And we'll look, and as we walk out, they look, well, there's that projector that was making this whole thing up. Yeah. But it is because the ego is dark because there's no light in an idea that basically was defined by what can I make that has no light whatsoever? What can I make that has no innocence? And I modified my little background chart to put Holy Spirit, sanity, and innocence on that side, and then ego, insanity, and guilt on that side, because the guilt is the thing that is the crucifixion. That's how we crucify ourselves and each other all the time, and we keep projecting that out onto the world, making it a prison. And the bodies, the time and space, the whole physical realm of what we think is the physical world is really nothing more than just the reflection of what's going on in our mind. But the crucifixion is a mental process where we take duality. And I was thinking the crucifix, even geometrically, is really such a great symbol because it really says I can draw and quarter my real identity, which is indivisible, and pull it apart like, vultures ripping, a corpse, and it's the divide and conquer strategy of the ego. And projecting guilt is like taking something that's intrinsically one and innocent, which Holy Spirit is always advocating, and just saying, nope, I pulled this off. I pulled off this impossible crime, and therefore now I have to feel guilty for that. And so because that's so intolerable, I've got to push it out of my mind ASAP. How am I going to do that? I project that onto the world by making the division that I've made in my mind real. And now it seems to manifest in 8 billion plus human bodies and gazillions of other animals, minerals, vegetables just on this planet alone. And what a convincing hologram. And but the scapegoat seems to have so many different faces and names, and if one fails to support my imagined release from guilt, I grab that quiver, find another, and find something else to project it on. And that's why our enemy du jour can shift so rapidly. If we switch off the TV and it's no longer a political figure, now it's the cat that puked on the floor, and or whatever the next thing is the annoyance of the moment, right? Yeah. So, but it doesn't really matter as long as there's something that we can use to keep the mind distracted, right? Abe.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about statement 2 and 3 in the paragraph, that we have the realization that we have betrayed God's Son by condemning him to death, and that we do not suspect that thought is even there. I certainly can vouch for that, because every time I read that, the knee-jerk reaction is, yeah, I'm not thinking that. That's not going through my thoughts, but I do see the consequences of that all the time, which is the sin, guilt, and fear. And I am becoming very aware that that is coming from that thought, even though I'm not really consciously thinking that thought. It's there. It's churning away, and it's producing thoughts that I become aware of, namely that I'm sinful, guilty, that I need to be fearful because God, something bad is going to happen to me, which is another way of saying, God is coming after me. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. We have to keep asking, well, gee, where's that bloody kerosene coming from that keeps igniting the world and making it horrible? and keeps me in firefighting mode, kind of thing. And I'm of course the valiant firefighter, because I have the face of innocence that says, oh, there's really not enough guilt or not enough innocence to go around, but I'll make sure that I keep my little part of innocence in my mind by taking that and then hoarding that, but not sharing it with anyone else, because there's just barely enough for me, and so everything and everyone else has to deal with the guilt that I don't want, that has never left my mind. Tim.
Oh, our friend Robin, she's a course student in Wisconsin, and her husband Dickie, he's not a course student, but he gets the gist, right? So she's telling him about this whole murderous intent that we all have, and then rather than deal with it, you project it out, and you tell your anyway, when they were start to get in a tiff with each other, they would both go into crucifixion mode and say with a sense of humor, "Behold me, brother, at your hands I die." I mean, you keep saying that back and forth. No, behold me, brother, your hands I die. No, behold me, brother, your hands I die.
Sort of like the opposite of Chip and Dale. That I don't know, just if you remember that cartoon. Yeah, that's funny. It might be a pretty workable way to do that, huh? If you can be mindful doing it, huh? Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Thank you. Anyone else on that paragraph? Let's see, Myra, can you read the next one?
Which one is that?
Let's see, I think we're on 4. Yep.
Okay. Much of the ego's strange behavior is directly attributable to its definition of guilt. To the ego, the guiltless are guilty. Okay. No trial, no nothing, no jury, no judge. That's it. We're all guilty. Okay. Those who do not attack are its enemies. To the ego, yeah. Because by not valuing its interpretation of salvation, well, its interpretation of salvation is attack. You have to survive. It's one or the other. Ken always says that, one or the other, one or the other. They are in an excellent position to let go. The ego is watching out for that. They have approached the darkest and deepest cornerstone. Well, those dark and deep cornerstones, I believe that's the unconscious unawareness that we have in the ego's foundation. And while the ego can withstand, you're raising all else to question. Here it comes. It guards this one secret with its life. And then watch out, it's going to give you a real bad time. Yeah, for its existence depends on keeping this secret. Guilt, 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 guilt. So it is this secret that we must look upon. For the ego cannot protect you against truth. And in its presence, in the presence of the truth, the ego is dispelled. Yeah. Well, that was with comments already. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that secret dream of oh, I've made this sin, guilt, fear thought system up, but don't anyone ever suggest that there's a little switch and that little blue dot in Ken's chart. There's that little tiny thing there that ego blots out and says, don't you dare look there, because that will undo the whole thing. The house of cards will fall down, and then, no, Mr. Bill, I'll be, wiped away. And but the only thing that we were asked to sacrifice is the idea of sacrifice. But that's part of that blue dot operation, that when we look at the whole thought system of the ego without condemnation, we realize, well, that's just silly. I love how, I know I said this more than a few times, how Ken Wapnick says the ego isn't sinful, evil, wicked. It's just silly. It's just silly. But we don't see that until we look at it with Holy Spirit, probably a few times, and begin to generalize and say, wow, that's just really just off the charts nutso thought system. Maya?
Yeah, the last couple of sentences there point out pretty clearly that the ego is dedicated to denying the truth. It says, we must look upon the ego, or this is the secret we must look upon, for the ego cannot protect you against truth. But that's what the ego's all about, is it's trying to protect us from the truth, the denial of truth. And many times in other places, he says directly, we must learn to deny the denial of truth. And that's what we can do when we have Holy Spirit's help.
Yeah.
It's just another way of stating that same principle,
Mm-hmm.
denying the denial.
Exactly. And even just being gentle and patient with ourselves when we look at the ego, just kind of even just peek through the cracks, while we're still, primarily in ego mode a fair amount of the time, but just kind of like peeking through the cracks a little bit. Say, oh, okay, there's, I guess that is kind of a crazy thought system. And, the Course doesn't ask us to change behavior. It just asks, just kind of look without condemnation. And even just look when we're still condemning ourselves, but just look at the fact that we want to condemn ourselves. And, that's basically, there's the guilt, being brought back to the mind, and just watch how ego squirms. It's like the little cockroach that hides in the darkness when the light goes on. And it's like, if we've broached the outer shield of oblivion, the outer world dream, and we say, oh, well, it's not about the world. Lesson 5, I'm not upset for the reason I think. And now it's like, okay, well, it's going on in here. I've gone from this. Let's see if you can see my hand here. Where'd my hand go? Oh, there it is. We've gone from the prison back into the mind, and looking at the ego with the Holy Spirit, who can look at the ego clearly and see that there's nothing there. But even if we're still largely identified with that, the Holy Spirit looks gently and patiently and but persistently, and sees that there's really no true cause there. It's all made up. It's all a fantasy. It's all a fiction. It's all magic, and therefore forgivable. But it takes a lot of practice to forgive ourselves consistently. So we need to be just gentle and patient. But then when we do forgive ourselves, it's like, wow, I am seeing peace instead of this. This whole specific thing of divide, conquer, and crucify. Dissect and and cast the pieces of flesh in the four corners of the earth, kind of thing. That's kind of the ego strategy of, as long as I can keep projecting the things that I am abhorred with in my own mind out onto the world, I think I can escape the guilt. But no, you can't escape it. But like Ken says of Freud was on the right track. He knew that there was, the guilt in the mind was a horrific place. He just didn't know that the guilt wasn't real. I think that's where the Course adds that wonderful bit of insight. That's like, we just have to keep looking with Holy Spirit, that voice that speaks to us throughout the day, and just see that, well, nothing happened here. I'm still here. I can see peace instead of this, and just keep choosing it more often. Yeah, but that blue dot, boy, there's a lot of resistance to looking at that decision maker and seeing that it's not the world that's the problem. It's not even the thought system that made the world a problem. It's just that little decision maker. There's a little tiny switch in there that's got a 2-position switch at any given moment. We can go back and forth real fast between Holy Spirit and ego. But we leave it, the default mode is currently the ego. And the Course is asking us to, over time, just notice how uncomfortable this is, how squeamish and squirmy and squiggly that thought system is. And just say, I could try this one, and it's probably a lot more peaceful. Christina, did you have something?
Hi, good morning. How
Good
do
morning.
I sound?
You sound great.
Pretty good. Well, Marissa had her hand up first, so we'll let her go.
Okay.
Then I'll speak.
I must have
Thank
been
you.
oblivious. Okay, sure.
Oh, then I'm next. You go first.
Okay.
Thanks, Christina. No, I was just going to say how when we start to realize our specialist scripts and watch them, that is the choice of either here in the ego thought system, cannibalism or hate, which is what Ken said in an audio. There is the opportunity to forgive it. Once you get over being aghast at how this all plays out in our everyday lives, wow, if I don't get my needs met, which is cannibalism, then I switch over to hate right away. It's like a quick switch. There's the forgiveness there. There is the opportunity to not judge the cannibal because we have to look at what's ugly and uncover it. That's that hidden dark cornerstone, which is the secret dream, in order to make progress. Because if we keep that hidden from us, we're going in, we're not uncovering anything. I just wanted to quickly add that.
Thank you.
I guess I'm hungry.
Oh. Yeah, it's not a very full menu. If you've got cannibalism and hate, isn't there anything else on the menu? But yeah, but it's all guilt and sin, guilt and fear. You just repackaged and different additives and fillers, I guess, right? Yeah, and ego's non-nutritious cuisine. Thanks. Let's see, Sakina, would you like to read the next paragraph?
I think Christina had something.
Oh, that's right. I'm totally spacing out today here. Excuse me.
You're
Christina.
just one of us. Hey. Well, I got a couple of things to add to the menu too, and that's attack and defense. And so what this paragraph was bringing up for me was like, when I first started with the material and to really work through it, and really I was actually trying to it's just in my mind, get it straight, I would have run-ins with people like in my family that would actually challenge the material, challenge my thoughts. And then, well, it was a way of, um, holding my boundaries, so to speak. And while I was working through like what I really thought was true about the ego, and I saw it as defenses and attacking. That's how it came across for me because that's what was going on for me.
Mhm.
And I so appreciate the conversations that I had with people, although some was very passionate, to the point there was not. I was thinking of, blanking on what Tim shared about Robin, and many of you have met her, some haven't, but it's just funny. I can just see her, and her husband doing that. Like, oh, I'm crucified, and that was some of the language and the feelings that I felt at the time going through this. Like, I am so crucified. And the, the challenge that the ego had in relentless to try to convince me, that what I was thinking and what I'm learning here in the undoing is just crazy, that ego's way is the truth of things. I mean, so I went through that period and it does talk about the undoing, but that's what this paragraph brings up for me is the challenges that I experienced while I was going through that. And it did make me just shut up. As the last paragraph was saying, is like, don't look at this and don't ask. Just sit down, shut up. And I did it silently for a little while. And thankfully, the course says you don't have to talk with others about it. You just do this in your own mind.
Mhm.
So these crazy, weird behaviors that I was talking about, this ego strange behavior, you know, you don't have to, share that necessarily. He says the biggest message you can give is this love. And I'm really big lately on just exemplifying that for people around me, not really speaking about it so that I'm not really challenged anyway, because I got it here, whatever, mind is. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's often, as Ken points out in one of his programs, parents and children are often our most difficult classroom. So oftentimes, the ones that we think are the closest to us, we program to push our buttons because we want to make sure that we've got an ample supply of, targets for our projected guilt. Right? Nothing unusual about that. I think we've all done that to some extent. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
why wouldn't we, have an incredible classroom in the people that we relate to the most, and are in contact with the most. Yeah. And so over time, it becomes easier and easier to realize that if I'm watching what my ego motivations are and wanting to change someone else or change the world, then I'm still, missing the point that I only need to change how I look at everyone, not the I don't need to change the world. I just need to change how I see it. Which thought system? That's all. Yeah. Thanks. Let's see. Anyone else on that? Okay. Kathy, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Sure. Are we on 5?
I think so. Uh-huh.
In the light of truth, let us recognize that you believe you have crucified God's Son. You have not admitted to this terrible secret because you would still wish to crucify him if you could find him. Yet the wish has hidden him from you because it is very fearful, and so you are afraid to find him. You have handled this wish to kill yourself by not knowing who you are and identifying with something else. You have projected guilt blindly and indiscriminately, but you have not uncovered its source. For the ego does want to kill you, and if you identify with it, you must believe its goal is yours. you know, it's interesting. Projecting guilt. Recently, I had an experience from probably 30 years ago come to mind, and rather upsetting experience. I think I was pregnant with my youngest, and I had my my oldest, who was probably 2 at that time, and I was out with my sister, and we were in downtown in Claremont. Where we were doesn't really matter. But she went into a store, and she didn't want to take her 2 boys, which were basically 2 years older than mine. So I'm sitting outside with her 2 boys and my daughter, and I'm pregnant. And this lady comes up to me, and she looks at me, and she says, "Don't you think you have enough already?" And obviously that still really bothered me, because here it is over 30 years later, and I'm still thinking about it. And the other night when I couldn't sleep, I was just mulling that over and over and over. And, you know, the thought came to mind, like, well, who made you judge, jury, and executioner? And then I went and looked for that, and for that saying. And I think I found it in Romans or something in the Bible. But then I realized it's like, well, aren't I basically being judge, jury, and executioner to her as well?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how, you know, things that happen in the course of our time linear life just kind of keep coming back and replaying them. But the thought of being judge, jury, and executioner, it's kind of been coming back to me since that came up. So I'm realizing when I get a judgmental thought, it's like, well, who made you judge, jury, and executioner? So it kind of is grounding for me.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I think the ego appoints all of us as judge, jury, and executioner. And, you know, we're constantly doing that unless we notice how often. And I think it's a gradual process of noticing more and more the insanity of the ego, and how it's constantly, you know, taking this guilt here and just saying, I can't deal with this insane thought system. I made it up, but I don't want to admit that. So the first thing I got to do is project it out onto the world and see someone else as being, you know, the judge, jury, and executioner, and then forget that everyone's ego is judge, jury, and executioner all the time. And then in order to, and this paragraph is just such a you know, a perfect example. You know, the terrible secret, you know, that we would still wish to crucify him if you could find him. Well, the real identity that the ego does not want us to find is in that blue dot, that decision maker that's carefully tucked away, that says, I made up this whole insane courtroom where everyone, you know, has the verdict of the mad queen and Alice in Wonderland off with her head, you know. The praying mantis edict that befalls every poor praying mantis that you know, successfully makes more kids. and, anyway, but that's the whole thing. That's like, as long as I can keep that thought system, you know, out of my mind, but most importantly, keep the idea that I chose that thought system out of my mind. That's the ego's, you know, seeming sigh of relief. It's like, whew, I evaded that. You know, it never really is happy, but it thinks it evaded certain annihilation. But the irony, of course, is that this is all made up. There's nothing to annihilate. The only thing that's real is, you know, this part of our mind that says nothing happened, and that's a placeholder that is there to lead us to this place of the eternal truth that nothing has changed. Our innocence is as one being is intact, and we don't need to have a courtroom. And so we have to just get back to the blue dot in order to get to Holy Spirit's courtroom that says nothing happened. Out of my courtroom. I can afford to forgive you because nothing happened. Myra?
When things get too quiet toward my right mind from my wrong mind, I notice in my savage search for sin, I'm scrolling and trolling for past. I have such a beautiful array of past memories that I can pull out of my grab bag that I still remember. I just choose one of the millisecond and dwell on it. And that keeps me away from what I'm really upset about, which is I'm afraid I might be peaceful and that actually I might experience the annihilation of God's love. That's ego's version of that, how ego would interpret that. So scrolling and trolling.
Yep. And the next section, really, I think we might want to close with that because the next section points it nicely. Tim.
So when somebody says something to me and I have that so kind of blunt, like, don't you know you have enough already? I mean, and every neuron in my body is reacting. It's like, what if I'm really projecting? What if I'm really saying that to Jesus? Usually I just take that very sentence in this case. Don't you have enough already, Jesus? You still want another piece of me? I mean, my God, look what I've given you already. And you want the last remaining crumb here. Don't you have enough already? I mean, that's what I'm saying to Jesus most of the time, probably. It's just like, that's quite a line to say to Jesus.
Yeah, it really is. Let's see. Sakina, would you like to read the next paragraph?
I have said that the crucifixion is the symbol of the ego. When it was confronted with the real guiltlessness of God's Son, it did attempt to kill him. And the reason it gave was the guiltlessness is blasphemous to God. To the ego, the ego is God. And guiltlessness must be interpreted as the final guilt that finally justifies murder. Not yet understand that any fear you may experience in connection with this course stems ultimately from this interpretation. But if you will consider your reactions to it, you will become increasingly convinced that it is so. I buy into that last sentence, and that by considering my reactions, I am becoming increasingly convinced that this is so. My understanding is growing.
Yeah, thanks. I think we're all in the same boat here, aren't we? Because the more we look at the craziness of the ego, we realize that the only thing it knows, I mean, it uses lots of different words, but the content, despite the form, is always some kind of guilt, some kind of sin, guilt, fear. The separation happened. Be afraid, be very afraid. Be upset. And it's just one of lack of peace. I mean, there's no possible peace in a thought system that's based on a faulty premise that guilt is justified. That it's really unfounded, unconscious guilt, and the unconscious goes away when we look like lesson 5 suggests, and see that I'm not upset for the reason I think. It's not out there. I'm projecting it. Okay, bring the guilt back inside. And then lesson 34 kicks in. It's like, okay, also with Holy Spirit's help, I need to see that the guilt that the thought that whole thought system made up was only because I chose that, bring it back from here to here. And now it's like, well, this whole thought system is insane only because I chose to have an insane thought. A tiny mad idea that separation could be possible. And we keep, repeating that over and over again, countless ways until we, completely generalize. And so that's why we need to be gentle and patient with ourselves as we keep noticing more and more what a desert the ego's thought system is, and metaphorically leave the desert, like Ken says. Thanks, Akina. Luana, would you like to read the next paragraph?
And can you tell me what the next paragraph is?
Sure. It's number 7.
Right, verse 7. On page 241.
Uh-huh.
Okay. This course has explicitly stated that its goal for you is happiness and peace. Yet you are afraid of it. You have been told again and again that it will set you free. Yet you sometimes react as if it is trying to imprison you. You often dismiss it more readily than you dismiss the ego's thought system. To some extent, then, you must believe that by not learning the course, you are protecting yourself. And you do not realize that it is only your guiltlessness that can protect you. So I have a question. So with the tiny mad idea, AKA the ego, right?
Well, the tiny mad idea is what really prompted us to have an ego, right? Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and to identify with it.
So with the ego, do we give it love, like nurture it like a baby? Or do we realize that it's not even there and we take that as a ping to forgive more?
Yeah, it seems like the course's emphasis is in looking at the things that we think are there with the Holy Spirit, seeing that they're causeless because the thought system that made them up is causeless.
Right.
And then that releases us from the guilt that we thought was real. But we have to, question the whole premise of it by questioning the thought system. So it's momentarily, or however long it takes to not run away from it, but just, be with it. And like Jesus says, together we have the lamp that will dispel the darkness. So I just have to look at my projections and see that not only are they not outside, they're not inside, they just were a misunderstanding. And
Yeah.
And that consistent practice of continuing to look kindly, patiently, gently at our mind and see that it's all forgivable. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Abe, I was just going to have you read next too. So.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Luana's comment about maybe nurturing a baby and thinking that might be the ego. I think maybe a better image is to think of that as have you ever heard of the movie Chucky? It was a horror movie, and it's this doll that's deranged. Maybe that's really, and we are actually cuddling that deranged doll, which is really not real, but it has horrendous ideas about what to do to us. So what the course is telling us to do is to look at that doll and say, this doll is not really good for me. I am slowly going to let it go and put it somewhere else.
Right. So like we were sharing yesterday, that the ego is hungry and it's wanting to eat our innocence.
Yeah. Right.
No holding Chucky.
Right. Yeah.
And coddling it doesn't make it less murderous.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim, thanks. Thanks.
Oh, I just have images of Rosemary's Baby now. Demon seed. So Oh yeah. So first of all, this whole section is really looking at, we think, we kind of projected. I mean, we thought I'll kill my relationship with my father, and then I'll turn the whole thing around, and now he's going to kill me. I mean, there's that level of fear, and certainly this section's about that, and it's all leading up to what Abe's going to do next week. Jesus is like, yeah, you're kind of afraid of that, but what you're really afraid of is God's not going to kill you, which is the whole fear of redemption. I'm already okay. That's what we're really afraid of. But you can see how he's leading up through this first level of fear, like God's somehow going to kill me, or like Adam and Eve, throw me out of heaven. And then I was thinking, do I what kinds of levels, what kind of ways do I think, God is guilty? Well, I mean, the Course is saying we made all this up. Unlike the Adam and Eve story where, they did something dumb and he threw them out of heaven and then they became bodies that could die. I mean, it's in a sense, he killed them. He made it possible for them to die as bodies. And that was his wrath for having taken a bite out of the wrong tree, for God's sake. So
what a setup to put that tree there in the first place.
Yeah, right. Of course,
the nerve.
And then he's going to hold it against them because they took a bite out of it, and he throws them out of heaven. But of course, says no. We chose to leave heaven. But even then, it's like on a good ego day, I'm thinking, why would God let me choose to do that? I'm still blaming him. How is he guilty? He's guilty because he let me leave. You should not have let me leave. Just a not so subtle ways. I'm always blaming God for this whole mess.
Yeah. So true. So true.
Not to mention the splinters in your mouth for biting the tree,
Very good. Would you like to read the next paragraph, Abe?
Yeah, number 8, yes?
Uh-huh.
Right. The atonement has always been interpreted as the release from guilt. And this is correct if it is understood. Yet, even when I interpret it for you, you may reject it and do not accept it for yourself. You have perhaps recognized the futility of the ego and its offerings. But though you do not want them, you may not yet look upon the alternative with gladness. In the extreme, you are afraid of redemption and you believe it will kill you. Make no mistake about the depth of this fear. For you believe that in the presence of truth, you might turn on yourself and destroy yourself. Yeah, well, this is leading up to the next section, for next Sunday. We basically, we've made this pigsty, and because it is our pigsty, we really like it much better than the mansion that God is offering us. And I am not about to let go of this because it is, after all, my pigsty. I may not like it, but it is mine, and I'm going to hold on to it. Yeah. So thanks.
And in that pigsty, probably not unlike a lot of aftermath of Super Bowl parties, there's a lot of empty beer bottles and beer cans around, and they're actually, if you take them to a redemption center, you can get money for them. So it's the fear of redemption, that because we know we could clean up the place if we just took all those empty bottles and beer cans to the recycling center, and then we get something of real value in exchange for the mess that we made. And that's all Jesus is asking for. Just give me your empty beer bottles and aluminum cans. So simple as that, right? Okay. Vicky, would you like to read the last paragraph?
As long as it's happier than most of the paragraphs in this section.
I can't guarantee that, but the thought system we use to look at it with could guarantee it, right? Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm reading number 9.
Yes, number 9.
Oh, look, he's calling us little children. Little child, this is not so. Okay, let's read that line before that. For you believe that in the presence of truth, you might turn on yourself and destroy yourself. Little child, this is not so. Your guilty secret is nothing, and if you will but bring it to the light will dispel it. and then no dark cloud will remain between you and the remembrance of your Father. For you will remember his guiltless Son, who did not die because he is immortal. And you will see that you were redeemed with him and have never been separated from him. In this understanding lies your remembering, for it is the recognition of love without fear. There will be great joy in heaven on your homecoming, and the joy will be yours, for the redeemed Son of Man is the guiltless Son of God, and to recognize him is your redemption. Yeah, all the way through this section today, and my experience with Ethan on Friday, I was thinking how blessed we are to have been given the idea that we have two minds. I never knew that. I mean, I was always going on my little ego mind in my life, and now this course tells us we have a choice and reminds us that we are our Father's children, and he's never forgotten us or left us. And yeah, and that we are the idea of love in the mind of love and the right mind. And it's such a soft cushion to go back to when we're trying to decipher these dreams that we're dreaming.
Yeah, it's a very gentle path, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the Holy Spirit leads us on. Yeah, thanks. And it's actually not that difficult to just take that empty beer bottle identity and put it in the back of the car and take it to the redemption center in our mind, and Jesus will return to us the real value that's been waiting for us all along, right? So that's a pretty good deal. The only deal we really want. I was just going to jump ahead very quickly and use this as a closing meditation. I'm going to read the second paragraph of the next section. We can use that as a closing meditation. I think that's the one. Is it the one?
It better be
No,
nice.
it's the fourth one. Yeah. In the next section. Okay, so if you just sit back and relax, you have built your whole insane belief system because you think you would be helpless in God's presence, and you would save yourself from his love because you think it would crush you into nothingness. You are afraid it would sweep you away from yourself and make you little because you believe that magnitude lies in defiance and that attack is grandeur. You think you have made a world God would destroy, and by loving him, which you do, you would throw this world away, which you would. Therefore, you have used the world to cover your love, and the deeper you go into the blackness of the ego's foundation, the closer you come to the love that is hidden there, and is this that frightens you. Okay. Thank you all. And we're getting closer and closer to the love, and by looking at the fear of the Holy Spirit, we're realizing that we never left, little by little, right?
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce.
Peace, everybody.
Thanks, Bruce.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bruce and everybody.
Can't wait till next Sunday now. Oh, Abe's gone, darn it.
Thank you, Bruce.
Wow.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yep.
Birthday
Proceed.
girl. Birthday girl.
girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
What-
Your cake. You can eat it too.
Bye all.
See y'all.